Well, welcome to the next segment of Adventures in the Library. This is where we started off looking at a particular word in nonfiction, particularly in the dictionary, and we're now tracking it through. We tracked it through from psychology into neurology, through psychology in the dictionary. Now we're going to move into the encyclopedia and see how the encyclopedia sort of reacts to different things, sort of presents its information. And what I've done is, because it's getting a lot to sort of remember what we've done and where we are, and this will be true for anyone who's doing this or following along, sort of, excuse me. So it's going to be a good idea if you get some form of note-taking thing. I have this here right now because a large chunk of my notes are kept on the computer, and it's easier for me to write it out this way here now and then transfer the notes in more detail over on the computer, and vice versa. I'm starting off. I've written out the word that we're sort of working on as moron, and we looked in the last segment. We looked at the term mental deficiency in the encyclopedia, and realized that it gave more definition to the term moron, and found out there were there were more classifications than that. Said we need to bookmark this, and that's exactly what we did. Is we bookmarked it here, and I actually picked up the wrong book because I've got several bookmarks in here. Here's the bookmark, but the bookmark goes into something that's ironic here. That because we're talking about it was talking about because we found moron under the term mental deficiency, and we know mental deficiency is a defect, and they're looking at the mind now connected to the brain, more particularly as the brain, and one thing is the term here that I want to sort of this is sort of I saw this and I looked at it, and I wanted to write this down, that we have to go into more detail on, is a term they have a second term here that we've got to look into, is called Mongolianism, right, or Mongolian idiocy, right? And so we're going to do that. And what you need to remember is that as we're doing this, that these are real terms inside of a encyclopedia, and this is the views that science had about these variety of peoples before 1960. So actually what I want to do is I want to take a look and see what we have here, if we have anything under Mongolianism, to see if we have any further definition of it. This will kind of tell us where we are in these things, where we are in terms of what they actually understand about this, and how far they actually understand, how much they understood. Because we're eventually show. I'm going to eventually show that that there is a here we go, man. Okay, they have it, but it's one of these we'll call circular definitions, where it says Mongolian idiot, see mental deficiency. And what they have in here on the Mongolian of this thing here is that they're describing it, and the way they describe it, again, there is a it really does seem to be a sort of a lack of understanding in here. And while they do talk about chromosomes, they're talking about genetic structure here. And so we can go back to it, and this is what we need to do sometimes, is you need to sort of look at other definitions to see how within this encyclopedia, to see how far they've gotten into things. So they've talked about heredity. They talked about chromosomes. So we're going to go into chromosomes here. So that's where we're going next. And we're going to put down just a little tick here, a little side note, that that this is not further defined. And when things are not further defined in this book here, and this is what we're doing, is that we went from a more general definitions in here to more specific and more detailed definitions here. And here we go, chromosomes. So I'm just writing up the word here. And it says here, any healthy straining of rod-shaped bodies which can be seen in mitosis, which carry the genes of hereditary, and this is DNA. They're talking about DNA here. So I want to see actually here if they really do have an understanding of DNA here, whether it does look like they have. So they have genes, they have DNA. So I'm going to take a look at genes and DNA here, because when we're talking about deficiency, if we're talking about the brain, we're talking about DNA, we're talking about genes. So that's what we're looking for now. Getting to the point. Here we go. DNA is going to be actually just that. So sometimes they have it spelled out full, and sometimes they have just the abbreviations of the acronym there. And the question is when you're looking for what do you look under? Do you look? Sometimes some definitions have things in alphabetical order, and in some cases they actually have them at a lot of the acronyms in front. So the first things you'll see is the acronym rather than, and they do not have DNA as itself. Well, they do here, but they have it under when they go to see, they have DNA here, but they don't have a full definition. They do they have a reference. So DNA says, take a look at nucleic acids and nucleotides. So you're going to another section. But we will take a look at gene and genetics. So, because we're right here anyway in E, we'll go over to take a look and see what they have for genetics. And you should know this, that DNA, chromosomes, and nucleic acids are all related to genetics. E. They have a whole series here on family of grass, different species of grass. Okay, germ, geochemistry, regular genetics. Here we go. A branch of biology dealing with heredity, should say. A branch of biology dealing with heredity. A study which seeks to explain the similarities and differences that exist between parents and offspring. And they give you a reference here for genetics that we will write down and look for at a later point, and that they're given that reference here as Gregor Mendel as the father of modern genetics here. And so they talk about pedigree, everything that has to do with basically that has to do with genetics here. The genes, the race, the differences between the races and stuff like that. This is here. It says human population geneticists have traced population migration and the intermixing of races through the analysis of the frequency of various blood antigens. And so this is at a point in time that there was a significant separation between various different races, and so we do want to take a look at this. There's another term I want to check called called eugenics, and see how one compares to the other. Okay, yeah. A division of eugenics, a division of biological science closely related to sociology, is concerned with the study of human heredity and the methods of improving heritage of human beings. And they give a name here, Sir Francis Galton, for eugenics. And I think this is something we should write down as well, because eugenics and genetics really aren't close here in terms of the definition. So let's see if these two people here, these two references to people, actually connect. Francis Galton. There you go. Oh, and in eugenics here they do talk about mental defectives. So we have a connection between eugenics and mental defectives now. So this is something for the next segment. I think we can now have a way to sort of a path forward where we can start looking at these things in more detail. I said I will look up to see if we can find anything on the two references that we have, and the thing is we're going to have to go outside of these books here. I think I'll check to see if that's right or wrong, and then we'll say we'll start pushing forward and see what happens. Anyways, until the next segment, take it easy.